Can I just get a quick survey of the interests that people have here? Because we don't have a fixed outline, so I'm happy to go into whatever is useful. Can I ask, can the researchers in the house raise your hands? All right. Can the tool authors in the house please raise your hand? Cool. What are you all doing here? Who didn't raise your hands? Can the intellectually curious step forward? All right, so just to quickly give an overview of what ORES is, we use some basic machine classifiers, which are things that categorize other things. Sorry, algorithms that categorize things. It's based on training data which comes from generally human-entered labeling, which is when you go look at edits by eye and you say, that's the F-bomb, not appropriate, this is damaging. And we have a special interface called WikiLabels, which gathers that data. We can only create models for things that we have data for. So if you have new ideas for models for us to implement, let us know now, because it's a long process to design the model, gather the data, figure out how to analyze it, and create a model. But we're interested in any new applications you think there might be. So ORES is it's a generic container. It's designed right now for scoring revisions only, but in the future we plan to look at different Wikipedia entities. That would be revisions as in a snapshot of an article, diffs as in the changes between articles. So the difference there would be a diff is something like the edit that was just made to an article. The revision is the whole article at a point in time. So you would look at something like the quality of that article. The current models we have available are article quality, which gives you something like the Wikipedia 1.0 assessment of an article. It lets you know, is this a stub article? Is this a C level, B level article? Is this a featured article? And we find those line up pretty well with the human assessments of articles. Another type of prediction that we can make is, I think I should probably help paste links in here. Another type of prediction we can make is the likelihood that, the likelihood that an edit is damaging to an article, the likelihood that an edit is good faith or bad faith. Those usually line up pretty well. If it's damaging, then it's bad faith. If it's not damaging, it's probably good faith. But there's some interesting stuff happening in the two places that don't normally happen. So if something is damaging in good faith, then that's a good opportunity to mentor an editor. If something is not damaging and bad faith, then our model's probably just wrong. Or it's the most benign attempt at vandalism ever. We're just offering a service here, but in my opinion of what we're doing, the purpose is that people take these scores and actually create social impact on Wikipedia with them. So one thing that's done is the damaging predictions can help reduce the article patrolling backlog. So patrollers don't have to go look at every single article. Instead, they look at just the ones that are most likely vandalism. I can show you what that looks like on Wikipedia. Hopefully. So in recent changes, there are new filters. Hopefully you've seen these. These filters start with some categories based on ORES predictions. Can you see them? Yeah. So this is very likely good. We'll make that green. Maybe problematic. Probably bad. Definitely bad.
You can choose the colors.
Yeah.
This is really big for accessibility. If red and green look the same to you, being
James Hare is saying that choosing the colors is great for accessibility. Absolutely. And it's fun. So you can see that the good ones look green, the ones we're not sure about, or actually these are probably ones that aren't evaluated by the service yet. Those don't have anything on them. Russian jokes, yeah, that's a prime target for vandalism. Let's see. Actually, that might be okay. So anyway, these are just some of the things that you can do with ORES. It would be great to get a little bit of feedback from the audience about what you're interested in, though. So this is just the quick overview of what's available. I guess I should also mention a fun new model that we're on the verge of deploying. It's available in beta, but not production, is an association between brand new articles that might just have a few sentences in them and the wiki projects that might have a community interested in that article. The idea is that hopefully somebody writes a tool that will connect the new article patrolling workflow with this information, so that we can say, hey, Wiki Project Medicine, you might want to know someone just created an article, but it currently doesn't have any citations. There's a good chance it's going to be deleted. Please go find the editor and rescue them from what's about to happen, or help them with what just happened with their article being deleted and them being a new editor. Hopefully that will reduce the new article patrolling backlog. Can I ask, are people here interested in how to actually query the service? Okay, for some reason I was expecting more than that, but at least 2 people are interested, so I'll go ahead and show you. My God, it's a Spanish keyboard mapping. So if you go to the top level of our server, you'll see that there's some documentation on the types of queries you can make. All of our requests so far, I think, are GET requests that return JSON. So it's really easy to use it from almost any environment, even from just a JavaScript environment, which was actually the first iteration of this was done in JavaScript as a gadget. Here's the top level documentation. Once you dig into that, you'll see you can get a score on a number of revisions. You can get a score on a specific revision. You can use this documentation to actually run the API from while having all of your parameters available. So we'll say nwiki revision, something that we know exists. I won't give anything else, any other parameters, because they're optional. But just so you know, these parameters mostly restrict the outputs. So I'll look at the most output we can get, and it'll say, here are the models that we have for this. So we have damaging that I was explaining, draft quality, which is more of a quick, it's another way to help patrol new articles. So this is probably okay. There's a small chance that it was a spam edit, whether or not the edit was made in good faith, and then the quality that I was describing. And here, quality can be tricky to decipher, but in this case, the article is still stub quality, we think. I'll show you the actual diff. Or nobody needs to know that. Let's see. So if people don't want to know how to query the service, can I ask what you do want to know? Anybody want to jump in here?
I have a dumb question.
Please.
What metrics do we use for scoring? Is it like individual judgments, or is there some like framework that we use to make that decision, which is then programmatically applied?
For scoring things like the article quality?
Yeah, like the way you highlight the sections of the paragraph. before?
Yeah, okay, so article quality I think is done by taking articles that have already been assessed. And Aaron, can you correct me on this? Is article quality done using a labeling campaign or by just using existing judgments?
It depends on the wiki. So for English Wikipedia, there's a lot of labels that people have applied to articles to say this article is a stub, this article is C-class, this article is a featured article. But in a lot of other wikis, the labels aren't very commonly applied. So, for example, I don't believe that Turkish Wikipedia does any real assessments at all. And so we set up a wiki labels campaign. Actually, I think it's still active if you want to try to look at Turkish Wikipedia. We can pull up an example. And essentially, we'll show people a random sample of articles and have them say, this article is this class, this article is this other class, and then train a model based on that. Really, the majority of the cases, though, there are some labels that are useful. A lot of wikis will just do good article and featured article, but they'll skip everything else. And so we'll set up a labeling campaign for filling in the rest. And we'll use some heuristics like the length of the article to try and make sure that we're getting a good sample of articles at various quality levels. But ultimately, it'll be human judgment, whether it's coming from our own labeling system where people can manually work through a random sample, or people working directly on the wiki and just labeling articles through their own processes.
And then to compare the previously labeled articles against new content to then determine a score, how does that work?
Let's see, the breakdown is basically that we just try to interpolate based on things that look like things we've seen before. So we have a number of features, they're called. They're ways that we analyze the article or the diff, and they might be things like how often do curse words appear, just to pick a simple example. And you know, there'll be a number like it's 0% curse words, it's 100% curse words. It's done by an anonymous editor, which turns out to be a little bit problematic. We take all the features that we think are useful about an article. We feed it into a thing which is good at recognizing patterns that it's seen before. In this case, we're using gradient boosting, just a type of machine learning algorithm, and it's using this library that you can play with at home too, scikit-learn, Python library. But yeah, so we take a large number of observations, which are the type of thing that we're going to judge. So we'll take a bunch of revisions, we'll feed them into a feature extractor, which tells us what types of things we're looking for show up in the article, and then we just say, you know, the gradient boosting in a sort of opaque way will determine that this is pretty close to something that I've seen before, and it'll spit out, humans say that this kind of stuff is damaging a lot of the time. But there are some problems with that approach, like whatever flaws the humans have who made the judgments are replicated by the AI.
I should note too that at least in English Wikipedia, a lot of the classes have changed over time. So if you look at an article that was labeled B class in 2006, probably doesn't have any citations. You can't even get to start class these days without at least having citations in the article. And so one of the problems that we have too is that judgment changes over time. And so we do a little bit of work to try and figure out when it most recently stabilized in order to make these predictions. But it's a good example of how, you know, whatever quote unquote mistakes there are in the data ends up showing up in the model later.
I should probably talk about things that we can do with this data. I guess the mechanics of how to actually query it are simple enough. If no one's jumping up and down to see me run some queries, then maybe I won't. But the things that you can do with this are pretty cool. Like we just had Sage Ross, who's writing the Wiki Education dashboard, take this sort of obscure feature inside here, which is the ability to hypothetically run a score as if something in there had been changed. So in Aaron's example, you need a lot of citations for something to be considered a good article in English Wikipedia. So what you can do is you can just look at the score for article quality. We'll say it's still a subclass article, and you can try changing each one of those features and see which one of these might get me to a start class article. So you can say, what if I had 10 citations? And you just add a parameter to your query, and that gives you back what the score would be. So you can see how the score would change depending on those variations. You could also say, imagine I added 10 images. See how that changes your prediction. Let's see.
You want to demo that?
I'm not sure I can.
Oh, I can tag in if you want.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Or you can explain it. So.
Sure.
So here I'm going to, I'll see if I can get started though. So we have some revision in English Wiki. We're going to see what the quality is, and we're going to output the features. So these are most of the raw features that we're using. These are most of the raw features that we're using to actually make our quality judgment. So you can see things here like, how many words are in there? 420. How many paragraphs exist without references? What's their total length? How many characters are in this diff? And then you can take this feature and you can feed it back in, and you can say, so now you can help Aaron. Inject.
So don't use inject, just run the query. You should run this right against the service. This is the awkward way to do things.
Okay, yeah. So here's the actual GET request that you would make to find which features are being used, what they look like.
Do you want to zoom in on that maybe? It's a little hard to see back here.
Thanks.
So it's a little bit more complicated than what you're seeing on the screen. But really the only complication is that we divide one feature by another, and we're not really showing you that here. And so for example, one of our features is how many content characters per character. And so like markup is generally not rendered as content, but like a word is generally rendered as content. And that's one of the indicators of quality that we use. Looking at this list, it's kind of amazing that we're able to predict quality at all. But this model is actually very, very good. So that's kind of one of the things that we run into with machine learning is just so long as we have something that has some signal, then usually any modeling approach will be able to pick up on it and make some useful predictions based on it. Fun story, this article quality model is one of our most used models, and people find it very useful despite this really simple feature set of number of citation templates, number of category links, number of image links. That's really, it's just a count of content bits.
How many queries do you get a day or a month, or however you measure it?
I think we're at like 200 external queries a minute. And that doesn't count caches that are on the outside, and there are a lot of caches that are on the outside. That's like somebody wrote a tool that's querying us right now. Whereas like the scores that Adam was showing that load up in MediaWiki, that doesn't get included in that number because they're sort of externally cached in MediaWiki.
Right.
So what I just did here was I took this query, which was kind of expanding how we're predicting the quality of this revision, and I said, okay, well right now it's almost certainly a stub class article. What would happen, if you can see the URL here, what would happen if I added, first I tried 5 reference tags, and it didn't make much of a difference in the prediction, so I said, what about 10 reference tags? Now it's a start class article. So in the Wiki Education dashboard, you can do the same thing in an automated way, and you can say, you can just suggest to a person writing an article, you can say, hey, nice work on your article, but it's still considered stub class. If you want to be considered start class, you should probably add at least 10 references. Just an example of something to do with a service. It's a little bit hard to give examples of things that people aren't doing yet. I'm trying to think of how we could generate those here. Does anyone have a problem you're working on Wiki? You have a tool you're writing, a problem you're working on? questions you want to have answered about articles.
What other models do you see yourself making in the future?
What other models do we see ourselves making? We have a list of them. Let's see if I can show you that.
ORES page.
Oh, really?
I don't think we have draft topic on there yet.
No, I think the question's what models have we not thought of yet, which is pretty hard to answer.
Or what models have you thought of but haven't done yet?
So there's Datatype is one that we're probably going to release pretty soon. So you'll be able to run this, like say for example, on a history page of an article, and be able to label each edit with the type of change that it was making. Like, was it adding new content? Was it refactoring? Was it just doing a copy edit? That kind of thing.
Was it vandalism?
Right. Well, we already have that.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's something that we figure will be useful both for analytics and for just helping people, you know, navigate the wiki and what's going on in the wiki.
Here's some background reading on the Datatype model.
You were working on a couple paid editing detection.
Yeah, paid editing detection. Thanks. That's a really fun one that should blow up in our faces. Yeah, the idea there is that we as of a couple weeks ago, we have a data set which is a list of sock puppet accounts who have been probably engaging in undisclosed paid editing. And so we're doing a similar kind of analysis, except in this case, I think we're using grammar primarily, because people seem to use a bunch of puffery when they're writing promotional stuff. And we can detect that by their inflated grammar. That one's not complete yet, but when it is, yeah, we should be able to do some type of abuse filtering, or hopefully someone wants to integrate that with a tool that will help find potential sock puppets, potential paid editors, and investigate further. Draft topic is really fun. Like I described it already, but let's see. I'll show you what that looks like so far. Is this the right arrow? Not sure why it's taking that long. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, maybe we should go ahead and look at this diff, but the prediction is that it's in military history, and these are the probabilities that it falls into these other categories, or other wiki projects, sorry. This particular list is actually what we're calling middle-level wiki projects. It turns out that there are a ton of wiki projects, and a lot of them are overlapping in different ways. So Sumit Asthana, the person who created this model, has created middle level in the wiki project hierarchy, which is a little bit more bibliographic or something. It breaks it down into more logical categories. An article can still fall into multiple categories, so it could easily be biography and military history.
Can you zoom in?
Do you want to show us the article, maybe? Like what article is about history and society?
Oh, this key map is killing me.
Oh, try old equals, and that will get
Oh,
you
you're
the
right.
whole article.
Yeah.
Ah, there you go.
Okay, so it happened to be right in this case. We like when that happens.
Basic training boot camp.
Yeah, and funny story, when we were creating this model, there was a little bit of a miscommunication about what we were actually using as the raw material to score. And the model was created using the very last version of an article, the most recent version of an article, which is obviously the most complete one in most cases. And so when we retrained the model using the very first revision, we got almost exactly the same model, it's pretty cool. And it means that we should be able to connect someone with an appropriate wiki project right away. And if anybody wants to work on that particular problem, it would be pretty great. Just get in touch with us, please. Because for all of these models, we only have the resources to create the service that gives you the scores. So we're relying on other people's interests and skills to use them in a workflow. We might have suggestions about how the workflow might look. We will definitely have suggestions about how to use and interpret the scores coming out of our models. Aaron, do you have any suggestions about generative questions here? That seem to be striking out.
Yeah, let's look at some of the tools that use ORES.
Thanks.
Actually, why don't you just go to the ORES page and look for the tools that use ORES section. And you got it.
That's it. Great. So these are some things that have been done already. There's integration inside of MediaWiki. That was the highlighting and special recent changes. It's also in special contributions and article history, page history. Oh, watch list, I'm sorry. It's in watch list also. Huggle uses ORES predictions. Seeing if there's anything completely different here. Patrubot, I don't need to do any shaming here, but Patrubot is kind of an interesting story. This is a bot that was being used on Spanish Wikipedia, and anytime you use one of these predictions, you need to be thoughtful about the cutoff level that you're using to interpret the numbers that we're giving you, basically. If you can't just use 50% because the score is going to have a completely different meaning on each wiki, so you need to actually be thoughtful about what the precision and recall are. If you don't know what those are, it's pretty easy to look up. But basically, it's the number of things that you're catching, and it's the number of false positives, and that's a bad way to describe it. Let me show you the picture. You need to be thoughtful about the threshold that you're using as a cutoff, because that makes all the difference to what the results actually do. The person who wrote Patrubot used some arbitrary number, and it ended up causing a huge number of perfectly good edits to be reverted, which is a very bad outcome. You want to err on the other side, if anything. You want to help people find as much vandalism as you can until you start being annoying to people writing good changes. If you end up using ORES, please check some of our documentation about thresholds. We have a threshold calculation formula built into the models, so you can say things like, I want to know what the threshold is for catching 90% of vandalism. You can just type that right into the URL, and we'll give you the number for that, and then you can use that number. The number will change over time slowly, so you should go back and check that number every once in a while. I can show you two things actually to help understand that. So, yeah. This is a little diagram that helps understand precision and recall. precision is basically how much of the things we're flagging are correctly flagged, and how many are false positives. Recall is how many of the things you're looking for did you catch with that threshold. And so if you look at the in actual if you have access to the internet and you run this, okay, so this is what a precision recall curve looks like. This is for the English Wiki damaging model. And you see that the x-axis is the threshold that you use as your cutoff. The y-axis is going to be the precision recall and filter rate. But yeah, just to look at recall. So it kind of makes sense that the higher your threshold is, the fewer of the less data you're actually going to find. So this will shrink as your threshold goes up. For this particular model, as you increase the threshold, the precision goes up, but that's because you're finding fewer and fewer of the actual items. Actually, I can't quite explain why that works. But if you look at the graph, you'll at least see.
Well, like, why is it not monotonic?
No, I just can't explain why it's not like centered on the border anyway. As you increase the threshold, it seems to get more accurate, but I feel like that's not really important.
What's the accuracy there?
No. You could graph accuracy too. Anyway, so
you're talking about precision.
Yeah, exactly.
So as you increase the threshold, you're essentially saying that you need to be more confident that this is damaging in order to flag it as damaging. And so when essentially what you're doing is you're reducing sensitivity as you increase the threshold. That's sort of the term that they like to use in signal processing. And so as you decrease sensitivity, that means that the stuff that you catch, that's really, really vandalism. And so precision goes up. You're right more of the time when you say that something is vandalism. But recall goes down. You're not quite catching as much stuff if you need to be super duper confident about it. So as you can see, like as the threshold goes up from left to right, or recall makes this steady decay. That by the time that our threshold is 0.5, we're only catching about half of the vandalism that's there.
So you can actually query the API. You use a statement that looks just like this. You say, give me the best possible recall with a precision above this, or more useful, with a recall above this. Recall is often useful because that reduces the number of good edits that you're bothering with. So it depends on your application though. Feel free to ask us for advice about that too.
For what it's worth too, if you're looking at playing with this, like implementing it in one of your tools and you need to set one of these thresholds, it takes a little while to get used to the machine learning evaluation metrics that will help you pick the right threshold. This is something we're pretty good at consulting at. So for example, if you were setting up a counter-vandalism tool, then I would tell you that you probably want to set a threshold at 90% recall and catch everything that's below that threshold. And so you're going to get low precision, but you want to have that high recall so that you can catch almost all of the vandalism. If you were building an automatic revert bot where no human review was going to happen, I would say, oh, let's set the precision really high because the mistakes are really difficult there. So let's set precision at 90%, and we might only catch 15% of the vandalism. which it's not a bad thing. We'd catch it really fast. So these are sort of the trade-offs that you would make. Some cases you want high precision, some cases you want high recall, and it's okay to sacrifice precision, and we can help you with that. In fact, the service can help you with that too. If you already know what sort of trade-offs you can make, you can actually query the ORES service to ask where you should set your thresholds in order to achieve that trade-off.
And then practically, if you go to just the ORES page on MediaWiki, you'll see a description of each of our models that are available in usage right now. Then this might be useful too. We have a table that's updated dynamically that tells you which wikis have which models available. Put this in the Etherpad. Any other ideas come up to people? Questions about things you'd like to see here?
What's the adoption by like, English Wiki and things like that? What tools are being used, like mainstream, for lack of a better description?
Yeah, I think most of the main vandalism fighting tools use ORES. The situation before ORES existed was that there were a bunch of AIs written by volunteers. The AIs would generally just target English Wikipedia or a small number of wikis because they have to all be maintained by somebody. The ORES was trying to solve that problem. If you want to see the specific tools that are being used, there's this URL. So this also might be useful for looking at example code, but maybe not, because I think a very small amount of the code in here is actually interfacing with ORES. It's probably more useful to just figure out the URLs you want to hit and then look at the output and see if you understand it.
Almost done.
Yeah, let's just switch to questions. Any more questions?
I have a quick demo where I built an ORES tool while we were here, just to show how easy it is. It's 30 lines long, and I'll be able to demo it. So somebody think of a question so that you can buy me a minute.
There's questions on the
Cool.
Okay, thank you. Reviewer judgment, yep, so I think we answered that one. The differences between version 2 and version 3, the URL structure has changed slightly. The biggest change is just that we have the threshold calculation built in now. There will probably be a version 4, but we're trying to keep compatibility for as long as possible so you can still get to some of the V1 endpoints. When there's a version 4, it'll just mean there's some kind of breaking change that we can't have in the same URL syntax. So you can continue using V2 and V3 probably for quite a while.
And V1.
Yeah, I think a few things are starting to break, but...
That shouldn't be. We should fix that.
Okay.
Those are legitimate bugs. You should never expect that V1 will change. If we do, we'll have some sort of RFC where we're going to try and see if we can get rid of it, but without an RFC, those are officially bugs.
Okay, and then of course we won't go backwards, so just try to target the latest API version, write your app that way, and then you shouldn't have to worry about it for a very long time. Any plan to enable article quality indicator in other major Wikipedias? Yes, definitely. Let's go to the support matrix. So here's article quality. French Wikipedia has a model. Persian Wikipedia is at 16% labeled, and so this is a labeling campaign in case you're interested. I can't actually link straight to it, but the idea is just that you have people looking at specific, you have people looking at revisions and typing in what they think about them manually. It looks like this. Oh, right. Never mind. So,
Are you ready for the demo?
yeah. So just keep track of this table, and if you want Datatype for your wiki, it's pretty easy to get started. Just let us know, and we'll help you start a labeling campaign. Time for a demo.
Okay. All right, folks. Let's see if I can manage this. I'm a little bit broken, but I think that I can probably manage. Let's see. All right. Wikipedia.org. Okay, so we just started playing around with releasing this draft topic model, and I want you to see a clear example of both how you can use it and how easy it is to build a tool on top of it. Maybe I might even inspire you to build a tool during this, or take this very simple tool that I've just built while we were in this session and expand it into something that people might actually want to use. As soon as my phone cooperates and lets me do my two-factor authentication. Any administrators in the room? Anybody a sysop on a wiki? Have you enabled two-factor authentication?
Yes.
Okay,
I
you're good people and you should feel good about yourself. Okay, let's see.
Now we know your temporary key.
And it just updated. Let's see if it still works. Yeah, it still worked, but it won't work now. Okay, all right. So first, let me show you the script that I made.
That's the main page.
What?
It looks like there was a topical assessment for the main page, which is
Oh,
technically
yeah. So as this script works, it is assessing every page. It's called draft topic. Oops.
I wonder
And
what classifies A and I as.
how does typing work? And we will be able to do that, assuming that I don't take too much time. So here's the entire script. It is 30 lines of code. Basically what this does is it reaches out to ORES and it gets predicted categories for a page, any page that you're on. It does this by getting the current version of the page, by constructing a request to ORES, figuring out part of the page that I can write that output to, and then making the call and writing the output. This is the actual call that reaches out to ORES, and this is the function that actually writes the output to the page. The only thing that it's doing here is making sure that ORES prediction is above some minimum probability, otherwise I won't even show it to you. Okay, so let's pick a page. I'm gonna do, let's see if we can do Anne Bishop, biologist. Okay. And so it'll run. Here we go. So it predicts that this article is about medicine, about chemistry, this history and society. It's a little bit of a bug in the wiki project hierarchy. Yeah, let me zoom in a bit. Maybe? There we go. Let's see, geography Europe, geography countries, philosophy and religion, language and literature, and apparently this matches some maintenance templates. So now let's look at the first sentence. So a biologist, Gridden University, University of Cambridge, or Gridden College. So obviously geography Europe matched, chemistry was matching, biology was matching. Worked on parasites, responsible for blockhead disease, so obviously we're matching with medicine. So this is a good example of what this tool can do. So you don't really need this for Anne Bishop, because Anne Bishop's article has been around for a long time and it's already relatively well categorized. But I want to show you something about Anne Bishop. If I go look at which wiki projects have marked this as within their content space, you'll notice that Wiki Project Medicine isn't here. Neither is Wiki Project Chemistry or Wiki Project Biology. So this is an example of this model is a great way to show wiki projects what articles they haven't categorized yet. One other thing that I want to show you real quick, if maybe we have time, is like what I think is really the killer use case for this, which is for reviewing article drafts.
So I'm going to go to English Wikipedia's articles for creation, and hopefully we can just go look at a draft. Yeah, let's look at Stephen G. Waxman, and there we go. So without even reading the article, we already know that this is about physics, it's about medicine, it's about chemistry, about biology. Let's see, neurologist, let's see, seems like it's spot on. And so if you're a member of Wiki Project Medicine and you want to go review drafts of articles that are within your subject scope, here you go. ORES will back you up. Anybody want to work on this and make it render a little bit better? Maybe even make a tool that will render a big list of drafts for Wiki Project Medicine or another wiki project? I'd really like to talk to you about it. 30 lines of code. Let me log out so none of y'all use my admin account to do anything. All right, I think we're at time. So Adam and I will be around at the hackathon. Is Amir back there? Yeah, there he is. Amir is also on the scoring platform team. We're the team of people who maintain this prediction service. We're really interested in the tools that you're developing. We're interested in modeling ideas that you have, and we're certainly interested in helping you use the models we already have. So reach out to us. Thanks for coming.